Now, did I need to make this video? Probably not. Did I still do it? Of course I did. This is my channel, and this is something that I use to track my progress, my milestones, everything under the sun. So, without further ado, hi, welcome back, my precious. I'm your dear host, Miha, and today we will be talking about my first experience of making a capsule collection. I wanted to make this video to document my process, to explain my thought process, and maybe help others to understand how to create their own in the same class that I've taken in their semesters to come. You can skip to any part of this video you'd like. I'm going to be adding the timestamps to each segment of this video. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Page 1, Mind Map. Now, what is a mind map? Basically, when you start going down the train of thought, but instead of it just being in your mind, it's an illustrated image. Or, as Google suggests, a mind map is a diagram used to visually organize information into a hierarchy, showing relationships among pieces of the whole. It is often based on a single concept drawn as an image in the center of a blank page, to which associated representations of such ideas as images, words, and parts of words are added. I am dyslexic, do not mind the very weird reading of that. We had to make a mind map on our country. As you know, Bangladesh, since our concept had to be centered within our country. Now, as you can see, it is not pretty whatsoever, but I tried, and it may not be pretty or organized, but it is what it is. So starting off with Bangladesh in the middle, we have what do you think about a country whenever you first bring it into mind? You have history, environment, religion, food, languages, national symbols, art, clothing, festivities, tourist spots, ethnicities, and probably much more, but those are what I was going for to begin with. And as you can see, these branch out into many smaller sects, which branch out further into more exemplary or example-like depictions. Page 2, the focused mind map. This is where I picked a subject matter to base my designs off of, and me being the ever-loving fan of gothic and dark aesthetics, I went with a vulture. Not just any vulture, the red-headed vulture, or Sarcogyps calvus, which is a locally extinct species in my country and a critically endangered species worldwide. Fun fact actually, Bangladesh has a record of 7 vulture species, and the world's first government-approved vulture safe zones, or VSZs, were declared in 2014 in Bangladesh. There are even laws banning the use of diclofenac and ketoprofen, 2 veterinary drugs that are highly toxic to vultures, as the animal carcasses which contain these drugs, if consumed by vultures, may lead to death. Moving on to the actual project, there are many things to love about vultures, such as their lively, deep plumage, as well as their wings, which are strong and powerful and have this interesting shape where the tip, as you can see, frays out just a little bit, adding that much of a visual difference. They can be seen in more farm central areas because, as you know, vultures are scavengers. They are seen as a scavenger species, and they mostly feast on carrion, or the remains of recently dead or already dead animals. The red-headed vulture, why I chose it specifically, is because it, as the name suggests, has a red head, as long as little red patches of skin on its thighs and red clawed feet. This adds a much-needed color variation within the already monotone black and white body, which I feel like I can very much use in my concept. Page 3, the title card. Making a title card was surprisingly challenging. I am not good at large details, but I improvised. Yes, the vulture in the middle was made by AI, but I did pull my weight. I did fix the little bit of plumage in the end, elongated the wing feathers, and extended the sky outwards. And that is it. I am not relying on AI. Please do not call the art police on me. I was pretty much stumped for the broader background because all of it was just a black void and I did not want it to stay that way. But then I stumbled upon an interesting creation, the art of carpentry in Bangladesh, also known as Darushilpo. This, paired with some filigree, metallics, and maybe some gothic aesthetics, and I thought, yep, this is going to tie perfectly in with my concept. Although I do not use any of these in my final concept, you gotta admit it looks pretty good. As for the name, Carrion Dame, what does it mean? Carrion, as explained earlier, is the recently deceased corpses or even rotting corpses of animals. Dame refers to a woman with a high level of political power, pretty much. So a Carrion Dame is referring to a woman in power, which seems to be the power over corpses, but I wish to see it as the queen of corpses or the queen of dead bodies or what have you. Basically, you have to pick a title that's not blatantly mentioning what your subject matter is. I could not just write in vulture theme. That would be too on the nose. You need to get creative with this, let your mind wander a little bit and have fun with it. Page 4, Design Philosophy. This is the boring part, so to speak. I had to pretty much write an essay illustrating these 4 questions about my design and my theme. What is my inspiration? Why did I choose this inspiration? Who is my target audience and when can it be worn? I will just scooch over here. Feel free to pause and read over it. But, so to speak, my inspiration is the red-headed vulture, or Sarcogyps calvus, now extinct locally in Bangladesh due to excessive use of some veterinary drugs for cattle which are toxic to scavengers, as well as loss of habitat along with hunting as well as superstition. Now, vultures are striking and majestic birds, but they are tied closely to death and, as such, the natural cycle of life, which ties them into a lot of superstitions, making them seem like almost messengers of death itself. But that's not how I see it. To me, death is something that's going to happen to everybody, and it is a part of the cycle of life. You live, you breathe, and you die. It is but natural. And one way of seeing vultures, even if they are picking at corpses, is to see them as honoring the dead. They are making use of something that we ourselves may see as unsightly, so to speak. And it is almost like saying they are giving back to the world what we took from them, thus carrying on this cycle of life. Moving on to the clothing and who it would appeal to, I want to say it would appeal to more so the higher class, people who invest in fashion and are very fashion forward and love making a statement. Somebody who understands the cycle of life and somebody who is seeking a dramatic statement piece. Now, when would these outfits be worn specifically? Well, probably during occasions that call for bold, dramatic, and elegant fashion statements. Maybe high fashion events, galas, runways, red carpet appearances. This whole range is supposed to be sophisticated and symbolic. So, sophisticated and symbolic, that's where you gotta wear it. Page 5, Market Research. Market research is basically when you're researching what was popular on the market, when it was popular, and you have to make sure that the dresses are similar to, or close to at least, to the theme that you're working on. For me, obviously, it is a gothic type look with accents of feathers, leather, and layered patterns, as well as a little bit of a sprinkling of a dystopian future-like aesthetic. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate this gorgeous Alexander McQueen dress called the Horn of Plenty? Like, look at the silhouette, look at the structure, look at the feathers. This was all black goose feathers. So pretty. Page 6 and 7, Trend Analysis and Forecast. This was supposed to be one board, but I went overboard and made it two. I'm so sorry. Here is where you have to look at the trends in the past, present, and possibly the future. When you look at the past, then you have to look at when this look was trending, when it first started, how it came to be, what are the notable milestones, so and so. Looking at the present, you have to sort of think, is it in fashion? How big is it in the fashion scene if it is, or is it completely obsolete? The future forecast wasn't necessary since I am nowhere near qualified to make predictions, but I still dug around and found some made by more qualified people of what might be on the scene of Gothic fashion in the future. Feel free to pause and read. As always, I will step aside right here and boom, I'm back. So, to explain, my theme focus is Gothic elegance, which is avian or vulture inspired and makes a dramatic statement. In the past, Gothic elegance or the Gothic style started in the 1970s to the early 2000s, and it evolved from the 1970s punk movement, and it was inspired by Gothic literature and horror films. Special thanks to designers like Vivienne Westwood and Jean-Paul Gaultier, which infused these rebellic aesthetics into couture, and artists like Louis Chou brought it to popularity. As for the milestones, we can thank Alexander McQueen, who is known for theatrical collections like Voss in 2001, which used feathers, sharp silhouettes, and dark tones to evoke the Gothic and macabre themes, as well as Rodate Spring 2010, which introduced vulture-inspired shredded textures, paying homage to nature's decay and resilience. This is the introduction and the rise of Gothic elegance. Moving on to present, which is Gothic glamour in modern fashion. In the present, Gothic fashion isn't mainstream, but it still has a wide range of popularity. As we can see in Rick Owens' 2021 to 2023 collection, which introduced apocalyptic and Gothic designs, Gucci in fall 2019, which explored Gothic drama with high collars, veils, surrealist accents, bringing Gothic elegance into luxury. And then there is the 2023 vampire winter trend, which was popularized by TikTok, as we all know, is the main popularization of fashion that happens in the current days. It combined Gothic elegance with contemporary styling, focusing on muted tones and luxurious textures. This, since we are talking about TikTok, obviously Gothic fashion is now more geared toward a younger audience. A younger audience that explores individuality and theatrical elegance. Modern Gothic fashion blends historical influences and wearable luxury. This is the maturity, as the theme is slowly and surely being integrated into luxury and fast fashion and has a wide range of accessibility. For a more future forecasting or a future prediction, my guess is, based on my research, that Gothic fashion is going to be more integrated with 3D sculpting, AI-generated styles, probably 3D printed materials, or even sculpted details, with a very, very high emphasis on sustainability. The trend forecast is a bell curve we call the fashion cycle. As fashion students, designers, and savants know, fashion is cycling. Trends get popular, die down, get popular again, rinse and repeat. It keeps happening, we've all seen it. This bell curve in particular shows the popularity of Gothic fashion from its emergence to present day and predicts what may happen in the years to come. As you can see, the Gothic aesthetics originated in the 1970s to the 1980s and slowly rose to its almost peak in the present day. But in the future, because it is on its peak now, we might see a sharp decline, but it will soon be renewed with eco-Gothic, AI, and cultural fashions, so on and so forth. Page 8, Client Profile. Now is when you wonder, who am I making this for anyway? That is where your client profile comes in. A client profile not only has your client demographic, aka their age range, gender, profile, and median income, but also the challenges that may come within targeting said demographic. You also need to note the psychology of your audience, their inner workings of their mind, their likes, dislikes, ambitions, and purchase behavior. Thank goodness for my consumer behavior classes, because I could not have gotten this far without it. You also have to take note of the geography and the seasons, which I may have forgotten to put in. Oops. Moving on to my actual work. We were tasked to put in the age range between 25 to 30. The gender that I specifically chose to target was female within any profession with a median income of about $70,000 annually. Now, the challenges with this demographic comes with the price range, quality control, limited orders, and delayed production. Since my work is going to be pretty couture, it is going to be hard to integrate into a more fast fashion scene. So maybe I should have made the median income a little bit higher, but I digress. Moving on to psychology, what does this demographic, or what does my target demographic value? We have an appreciation for individuality, self-expression and nonconformity, fascination with themes of mysticism, mortality, and timeless elegance. These people will tend to lead a sophisticated and cultured lifestyle. They would enjoy art galleries, theater, and historical landmarks. They would be drawn to exclusivity, preferring bespoke or limited edition designs that set them apart. As for how they perceive fashion, they would likely view fashion as a form of storytelling and identity, likely to favor avant-garde or couture designs over mass-produced fashion. Purchase behavior. What is their motivation? Well, the motivation of my demographic would be an emotional connection to this theme or story behind this collection. So, environmental conservation, animal conservation, the themes of life and death and the cycle of life, so on and so forth. Their shopping habits would be research-driven, often exploring the designer's inspiration and process before purchasing. And the shopping times would primarily be during seasonal events or special launches. These people would favor niche designers or brands that align with their personal values, showing a tendency to become repeat customers. So very much I am focusing on a demographic that would basically see me as a personal designer, so to speak, because I want to be that sort of designer. I want people to come up to me and go, hey, here's my concept. I would like for you to work with me to make something out of it. That's the sort of designer that I want to be. Moving on to geography, my primary market would be the fashion capitals, aka New York, London, Tokyo, Paris, Milan, Shanghai, and maybe also Dubai, which is a rising fashion capital as we can see in the modern day. My secondary market would be another rising capital, which is Berlin, Germany. As well as climate consideration could be colder regions. Since Gothic fashion and Gothic elegance has a lot of layers that go into it, you need to understand that it will not be favorable for somebody in a warmer country to just walk around with multiple layers, feathers, and fur. So colder regions like Canada and Russia are very much on the cards for my client base. Page 9, color board. Now this is where the fun sort of starts to begin. As a part of a color board, you can pick either 1 to 2 pictures that are your theme or are loosely related to your theme. For me, I chose a red-headed vulture, of course, as well as a gold-flecked obsidian, which I feel like would go perfectly with a Gothic elegant aesthetic. You can either eyedrop a smattering of colors that catch your eye, or even make your own by playing around with the values of a selected color, as long as it matches or looks like it is part of your subject matter or the pictures that you've chosen. As you can see, there are a lot of colors that I picked out from these two images. But of these, you can only pick about 8 of these. And you have to segment them into 3. So for the top, I picked a nice cool burgundy, a deep red, and a white. For my bases, I picked a black, a warm gray, as well as a brownish cool gray. For the novelty colors, for the novelty you can pick 1 to 2 colors, which would be the pop of color within your dresses and within your designs. As well as that, you have to mention the Pantone codes for your colors, which I picked Pantone Solid Coated. Page 10, Look Board. Here you can construct the overall look of your collection. So not just clothes, but hair, makeup, accessories like shoes, bags, jewelry, and so much more. As you know and can already tell, I'm a goth girly, and I have curated my look board to reflect a mental image of my final designs. I will say having a good idea on what your final range will look like is a big plus at this stage, since you can easily visualize what goes with your designs and what doesn't. You also have to add a little bit of a description on what you're wanting and what you're not wanting. So over here, I chose to put a brief description in the middle with all of the visual aspects all over. So my look, which is gothic elegance, features sleek silhouettes, flowing capes, feathered accents, dark moody tones, and muted metallics. Accessories can include statement chokers, claw-like rings, veiled headpieces, and structured bags with talon or bone-like details. As we all know, gothic makeup emphasizes dark, smoky eyes, blood red or even black lips, and pale matte skin, while hairstyles range within sculpted updos adorned with feathers or jeweled hairpieces. Footwear typically includes tall-heeled boots or architectural pumps, so something that clearly wants to make a statement. Page 11, Material Study. This is where knowing what your final result or your final range will look like is absolutely crucial. Mine is more so what might work with my whole aesthetic, but if you want to make your material study congruent with your final, then I suggest skipping this step until after you've made your final designs. But moving on, with my material study, with the textural and ornamental fabrics, I've chosen to use faux fur and feather fabric for heavy texture, and lace, mesh, and burnout velvet for visual and more subtle texturing. Whereas the main body would be made with velvet, taffeta, and satin for basic base structures, brocade for patterned bases, and leather for the more accented bases. For layering, we all know chiffon, organza, and georgette are crucial for layering, as they can create a beautiful veil-like effect on anything, especially if you layer it on top of embroidered fabrics or printed fabrics. That is gorgeous. Love it. For 3D elements, we can use neoprene, which is a type of foam, and thermoplastic for sculpted details, and of course can to accentuate the volume of skirts. For accents, I've chosen to use embossed leather, beaded or studded, or even embroidered details in metallic thread or metallic fabric appliques. As always, feel free to go wild with this. This doesn't have to be what you're using in your final range. This can just be, oh, this is what can work within what I'm using, and this is what would look good. This is what I could do. Page 8, Mood Board. Now that you're all done depicting what might go into your range, it is time for you to put it all together in a cohesive, good-looking mood board. Big thanks to my professor for helping me make this go from garish monstrosity to a cohesive mess. Try not to overload the page, as I've been told. Less is more in this case. As you can see, Carrion inspired art pieces, a wing, some gothic elegance designs, some draped fabrics that are representing the human bones, the human ribcage, dark angels, obsidian, gold, cracked earth, a cathedral in the back, the works. This in a whole should represent what your actual theme is, as well as what your final designs will look like. So make sure to put in those color swatches, because I honestly forgot to put them the first time, and thank goodness I remembered to put them back. Page 13, embellishments. Embellishments are basically what surface patterns may go into your final. Now, just like your material study, all of this does not have to be used in your final design. It can also be something that might go well with your design, but make sure to use at least one of what you're making. For one, I used a skull of a vulture, which is simplified and arranged into a repeating mandala-like pattern, which could be a print or even burnout velvet. I even used some feathers to make another repeating pattern, as well as a more, I want to say dense feather-like pattern, but looking at it from afar, it almost looks like vines, which I'm actually really fond of. It looks really nice. Make sure you make your patterns repeat in a way that looks nice. As for me, with the pattern preview of the skull, it took me a while to figure out that a more brick-like structure or a hexagon structure would look best. Also, make sure to mention what sizes your patterns will be. For instance, my skull mandalas would be 3 inches, the feathers each would be 4, which is the actual size on the fabric, and the more dense feather pattern would be 3 inches on the repeat. Page 14, silhouettes. Now here is when the real fun begins. Silhouettes are basically the overall shape of your final garment. Now over here we had to work with 6 different silhouettes, and I will say this, I cannot stress this enough, try to diversify your silhouettes, try to make them as unique and as different as possible to each other. They need to look distinct, but still sort of fall into the same aesthetic as you're going for. Look online, there are many different types of silhouettes. Not just your typical A-line, your typical ball gown, flare, bubble skirt. There are so many more, and feel free to come up with your own. This is fashion, baby. There's nothing you can do that hasn't been done before. For my silhouettes, for the first I went for the shape of unfurling wings, which makes this interesting M shape, and I could use this to make a high-low asymmetric skirt with a more shorter front with the sides draping down. The next one, I used a talon for my inspiration, which has this sharp curved angle, and I am a big fan of exaggerated shoulder pads, and I had to use this in the shoulder pads. I do not know, and I did not know at this point how I'm going to use it, but damn me, I am going to use it because it is just such a fun aesthetic to work with. It is visually so interesting to me. Of course, with vultures comes the gorgeous, the fabulous neck plumage, which can be conveyed as an exaggerated, soft silhouette over the shoulders and neck. With the skirt, to accent it, I chose to make the skirt a pencil skirt or a more body-hugging skirt, which, you know, draws more attention to the fluffy plumage around the neck. Going with the Gothic aesthetic, I also added a conical spire of a cathedral, which I could use as a tent dress shape. And going with the vulture theme, I added a carrion. More specifically is the shape of the rib cage, which, surprise, surprise, I used on the rib cage as rib cage details. How many times did I say rib cage? Please do not start counting. And for the entire vulture, the shape of the wings I used as overlapping coat collars almost, the lapels of the coat or what have you. I am such a bad fashion student, I don't even know what that's called. The coat lapels would be overlapping with serrated wing details, and the fan-like tail could be represented as a flared out skirt. Now I will say this, your inspiration and what you choose to draw inspiration from in your silhouettes does not have to be specifically tied to your theme. It can be something that is related. For instance, as you can see, I used a spire for a Gothic cathedral. Nowhere near this can you see a vulture, but with my entire theme being gothic, I thought a cathedral spire would work pretty well. Plus, I had a vision of this gorgeous tent dress with very low-cut sleeves, some revealing aspects. It was a whole vision. I basically worked backwards. You don't have to, but that's sort of my thought process on this. Page 15, style development. Once you're done with silhouettes, then you can move on to actually designing your garments. Keep in mind that this will not be the final garment that you do, but it might be, so try not to stress it too much. Just try to follow the silhouettes that you've picked and let your mind wander. For me, I use the wing silhouette, as you can see, in a high-low skirt. With the claw silhouette, I chose to make a sort of ball gown sheer aesthetic. I really wanted to put in some layering, so that's what I did with the skirt. With the neck plumage, obviously there's going to be a feather boa with a low cut, because Gothic elegance has close ties to revealing. And with the cathedral spire, there's my vision. As you can see, I had a very specific vision. Deep cut armholes, a little bit of leather showing through. It is, in my opinion, absolutely gorgeous. With the ribcage details, this was actually a byproduct of my draping classes, which we were tasked to drape pleats onto a dress form, and while sewing it, I had the realization, these pleats going across the chest look so much like a ribcage that if I exaggerated them just a little bit, added a little bit of drape, they would look so good as a sort of ribcage top. And I just added bell-bottom pants because I did not know what to pair these with. And as for the overall vulture design with the overlapping lapels of the coat, I use a little bit of a fur boa as a collar on the coat, as well as flaring out the skirt end of the coat to make it almost like a blazer dress. And obviously I paired it with skinny slacks because a blazer and slacks can never go wrong with that. Pages 16 through 21, design development. A design development, or DD for short, is when you take those initial drafts and spin them into different designs within the realm of your silhouette, of course. For my first, with the unfurling wing shape, I played around with adding more fur, adding no fur, adding more wing details, making everything a little more simplistic. I did, as you can see, stick with adding wings onto this because I feel like the wings and the serrated wing details add so much more depth and so much character to this design. It is just great. With my second design development, or the curved sharp angles, I initially wanted to get rid of the layered cloak effect, or the layered sheer piece that goes over the skirt, and swap it out with dangling chains, but to me it felt like there was way too much going on, so I immediately scrapped that idea. I did also play around with the idea of it being pants, because I did not want to be confined to a skirt. So yes, the pants might have looked good, but I don't really know at this point. So I just went on with more wing details, a little bit of a high-low situation going on with the draping, and as well as a pencil skirt. And of course, exaggerated shoulder pads. Can never go wrong with exaggerated shoulder pads. They are, again, stunning. With my third design development, or the neck plumage, I did want to try something that doesn't exactly include a feather boa. And I will tell you this right now, I absolutely hated that. I love my feathers. I love my dramatic, bold appearances, so I just stuck with it. But my initial idea was to make the entire dress out of these strips of pleated fabric, almost like a 12 gore or even a 16 gore skirt, but extended upwards on the body to make an entire bodice. But to me, it just feels like too much of a stray away from my initial theme, so I chose to not stick with that, but it is still a really, really good design. For my fourth design development, which is the cathedral spire and which is one that I was most looking forward to, I did try out different necklines, different patterns for it. With the second one in the lineup, I am not sure what I was going for. It just looks so bland. There is no character in it. I was just in love with the deep armholes. I am sorry, why did I even do this? But that's the beauty of design developments. Trial and error. You just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. You never know. Maybe you'll find a diamond in the rough. For me, that second dress was not a diamond in the rough, nowhere near it. Still, am I happy that I did it? Yeah, because it made me realize that this is something that I really, really do not want. And I really do want that deep cut armhole. For my ribcage inspired designs, I did not want to be confined to specifically the pleats. I did try to branch out into more 3D designs with this third design, as you can see, with the 3D bones, probably made of thermoplastic or foam. But truth be told, there are just so many things out there on the market that look similar or identical to this. Anytime you think gothic skeleton inspired designs, the first thing that is going to pop up is 3D printed or plastic rib cages slapped onto a bodice. So, I mean, hey, trial and error, right? I tried, I failed, it was something that I did. I did also try to include that leather bodice peeking out from underneath a very low cut top, as well as trying out different designs of the collarbone or the sternum, which is the bone that runs through the middle of your rib cage. For my sixth design development, I am not going to lie, I was so stumped on what to do with this. So as you can see in the fourth, I pretty much just recycled the design from my second design development, or my third, I don't remember. But I integrated those feathery collar details. I tried to branch out into no sleeves, maybe a belt, experimented with high-low skirts. There was a lot of experimentation going on with this because genuinely I did not know where to go with this. Page 22, Final Range. The final range is where you pick which ones from your design developments you think looks best, and you colorize them with patterns if they have any. As for me, I ended up picking one of the developments that I did for my first four, but as you can see, with my last one, I did end up sticking with the first draft that I made because, again, I was just so stumped on what to do. I did not think I liked any of the others, so I just stuck to what I thought looked best. As for the colors, you don't have to specifically stick to the colors you picked out in your color board. Feel free to branch out. For me, I just felt like having that selection, having that sort of limitation was good for me because I tend to go wild with colors. Color theory is something that I've studied, but oh my goodness, I cannot pick the right colors for the life of me. So it was actually pretty helpful to have some sort of pointers that was saying, hey, these are the colors that you can use and try to stay within them. And honestly, I feel like the colors work really well together. All of this looks cohesive. It looks like it's part of the same sort of collection. And I think I did pretty good. Page 23, Design Brief. A design brief is where you describe what your dress is, its materials, along with the technical drawings of your garment, as well as the back and front views of it. A big thank you to my partner for helping me with the descriptions of these. I love you, Bear. You are such a lifesaver. I admit I did half-ass these technical drawings because I was on my third day of no sleep. Yay for procrastination. And as you can see, like this little corner on the back of the belt, if you see on the model, that doesn't exist. Where did it come from? I don't know. I should have gotten rid of it, but I was on a time crunch and I did not have the time to fix it, nor the mental capacity. Oh well, at least it looks nice. Moving on to the design brief. The first design is the dress inspired by the unfurling wings and the feathers of a vulture about to take off, and the layers of the skirt are meant to emulate the layering of the feathers on a vulture. The belt cuff is a gold finished leather and the layers are textured wool made to look like feathers. The white inner bodice and the sweetheart neckline is to emulate that heart-shaped patch of white fur in the chest of a red-headed vulture, which, oh my god, it's such a cute detail. Like, whoever made this, whoever made vultures, clearly loved vultures. Just look at those eyes. You know, look at those eyes. This is so cute. Anyway, moving on. Design brief 2, which is my more so gala inspired look, which is made inspired by the sharp talons of a vulture in mind, while the overall layers and silhouette gives it the regal theme fitting to be called Carrion Dame. The red leather sleeve gloves with exaggerated shoulder pads add the curved shape of the talon, with a leather wing panel placed on top and on the hip pads, which are lined with can-can structure. A red cabochon embellishment along with gold chains add to the regal feel, and a red satin waistband to tie above the hip pads, which lower a canopy of black organza on top of a bodice made of printed silk. Now, if you ask me, I would have probably swapped out the colors a little bit around here. Since I used a gold aura or a gold dust obsidian in my concept, I would probably have wanted to use that in at least one of the cabochons, but I digress. Post-work thoughts. Just maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, who knows. Design brief 3, which was made with the vulture's neck plumage in mind, accented by a sleek lower body silhouette. The deep neck with white fur trim alludes to the neck plumage, while the red leather gloves emulate the bare neck and legs of the vulture. The bodice, I wanted the bodice to be made of burnout velvet in the skull pattern, and a high leg slit to add to the allure of the overall look, while the gold buttons linked with gold chains accentuates the slit. Now, I know I've been pausing to let you all read, but as I'm reading this, I am realizing my sleep-deprived brain made so many spelling errors in this. Just try to not read too much into it, alright? I did not have enough time to fix any of this post-production. Design brief 4. Drawing from a gothic look, this tent dress with exaggerated armholes is inspired by a cathedral spire. The inner bodice is made of textured red leather to tie in the red skin on the head and legs of a vulture. The outer dress is made of a flowy satin embroidered with a feather motif and gold thread, and the front slit going across the chest is reminiscent of the chest patch of a vulture, and the collar cuff is made of EVA foam with a gold finish. Now, I might have made the collar cuff again with a gold finished leather, but it's a design brief, anything can happen. Design brief 5, which is my ribcage inspired design. Synonymous with the carrion of many animals due to their eating habits, the pleated bodice resembles that of a ribcage and is connected to a gold finished leather one-off collar piece. On the pants, the sailor button placket style helps to finalize with the top, as the high-rise flare pants keep the bottom strong and composed. With the gold finished buttons, the entire ensemble keeps the symbology of death that hangs over the vulture's look. There are little to no other creatures that closely tie into these ancient portrayals of death and rebirth, and this style helps with mixing those close tie-ins with our avian friends. I don't know if you noticed this, but this was so clearly done by my partner. Oh my god, he's such a good writer. But it's good. I don't know what to say. He helped me out quite a bit. But for the technical, I struggled quite a bit with this, and I could not be bothered to make the pants. I was so done with everything. This was taking up so much time, and I had maybe an hour on my hands to wrap everything up and get going, so you're just gonna have to deal with the top for now. Design brief 6, which is my coat design, which draws upon the silhouette of a vulture in flight. This blazer dress, accented with a flared skirt, helps demonstrate the formal outfitting of the vulture. Amidst this, the fur collar that crowns upon the trench coat style button placket grants the correct amount of volume to the look. The ruched skinny slacks are shadowed by the aforementioned blazer dress with trench coat style button placket, and the overall design reinforces the idea that these avian aristocrats and how much space they take as they soar through the sky. Cream yellow wool with the skull motif print creates the comfortable nature of the blazer dress as the leather lapel wraps around the chest and nape. Popping out the glorious shape of the vulture's wings can be transformed into the high-collared fur and leather strap lapel, congregating together to reveal a formal and modern take on a rustic yet prestigious mammal. I can tell while making this he was a little bit tired, and I do apologize to him because I did ask him to make this while he was tired, but birds are not mammals, just saying. Anyway, nobody needs to know. And do not look at the technical drawing. Oh my god, that is hideous. What the actual hell was I thinking? Again, left out the pants because couldn't be bothered. Page 29, the display board. The display board is supposed to be printed on an A3 sheet of PVA board or PVC board, which is supposed to depict your work from start to finish. Now, I do admit mine could be so much better, and this is where I give a huge thanks to my friend who helped me with the initial layout of it, because I was running on so little sleep, I could not have made this out of scratch. She helped me with basically putting in the base works, and I did the rest. I cleaned it up, I moved some things around, and I made it to where I think this is something that I can actually turn in and get a passing grade out of. For the display board, obviously you need to put in the name and then a little bit of a description on possibly your look, your embellishments, your designs, your material. Points to note, these are the few things that you have to keep in. You have to keep in your title, you have to keep in your final range, and you have to keep in the colors that you picked. Other than that, feel free to mishmash anything that is all over your boards, but in the same vein as the mood boards, remember that less is more. You do not want it to be overly crowded. Even if it is an A3 size of paper, you need to have it to where people can just gloss over this entire thing and get a initial feel for what you're trying to do. Did you like what you see? What would you have added or done differently? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, my uploads are inconsistent, my schedule is absolutely smashed, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, precious. Till next time.